Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, Why Banks, CPAs, and Benefit Brokers Need to Be in the Payroll Business. Top 10 questions answered. My name is Mike Vanoy, and I'm joined by panelists today, Kathy Palmer, who is our Senior Vice President of Reseller Development, and on her team, Ben Kingsbury and Debbie Gonzalez. Between the four of us, we've spent decades in the human capital management and payroll space, specifically this team working with banks, CPAs, and benefit brokers, helping equip them to get in the payroll business and all the benefits that means, many of which we'll talk about today. So what's the purpose of today's webinar? So what we want to talk to you today about is as the trusted advisors for owners, for C-level, for financial management, the CFOs, directors of finance of small and mid-sized companies, they come to the banker, they come to their CPA, they come to their benefit broker for advice and guidance in all matters of money movement, in tracking the books, staying compliant, putting benefit plans together, and all of those things touch payroll, right? Whether it's a deduction for benefit, whether it's the movement of money in and out, whether it's the direct deposit, whether it's the tracking of pay types and staying compliant in tax filing. All four of us, I would say, banking, accounting, benefits, and payroll, we're all intertwined. And so I think that what it's going to come through clear today are the synergies that exist in this space, and hopefully a clear case of why these types of businesses should be considering adding payroll services to their product mix. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the questions, and we'll discuss why is it that bank CPAs and benefit brokers need to be in the payroll business. Our first question. So I don't know who wants to tackle this one, but how is it that adding payroll expands the addressable market for any of these three constituencies?
Hey, Mike, I'll take that. There are actually numerous reasons, but let me kind of go through three or four. First of all, everybody needs payroll. Every business, small or large, has payroll. They need to process payrolls for their employees. They need to pay and be compliant on their taxes. So regardless of size, small or large, payroll is a huge market and a huge opportunity. And the main thing, though, is particularly in the small business market, payroll is complex. It's hard for small businesses to understand and stay on top of all the wage and labor laws and all the tax compliance. And so when they run into questions or issues, and the first person that they look to is their trusted advisor, whether that's their CPA, their banker, broker, or another business consultant, that's who they look to. And so being that trusted advisor really opens up this tremendous opportunity for you to be able to offer your own payroll services. I think another thing that's so important is that, and I've heard this numerous times from CPAs that I've worked with in the past, that payroll can be the barometer into the health of an organization, the health of your business. And if you are not really up to speed on all the things, you can make a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes could show up in your general ledger. Those things could show up on the other areas and important facets of your business. So just having someone that you could work with, that you trust, that knows payroll in and out, I think is just really critical. Another thing I think is really important is just that your competitors are probably in the business. I mean, it's a competitive necessity to look at payroll as a critical component of your business portfolio, because, as I said, your competitors are already in the business, or they are considering getting into the business. And there's a reason why for those first two reasons. And I think if there's one other thing, Mike, I would add would be, and I think we're going to talk about this a little further in the presentation today, but it just provides an opportunity to diversify your portfolio, to offer more services to your clients, because payroll is so critical to all small businesses, and it's just a natural extension. So, just sort of in summary there, I think is, for any trusted advisor who is considering getting into the payroll business, they should just know this, that the opportunity is huge.
Let me dig in on that, and if Ben or Debbie want to follow up, or maybe Kathy. So one of the things about, and I agree with everything you said. One of the things about being a CPA or a bank or a benefit broker. I mean, I think we're all kind of essential businesses, right? All four of us. So what do you say to the person's a bank? Hey, every company needs a bank. The same they need payroll. um, there's sometimes something to be said about focus too, right? So, Debbie, what is it about maybe the ins and outs and the flow of the number of transactions and seasonality that still allows you to expand market, even though we are all essential businesses?
Right. Well, the way I look at it is with banks and CPAs and brokers, primarily banks, and the money movement, there's money going in and money going out. We are all a direct extension of each other, really. Another thing I'd like to point out is the auditing trail. So your CPA or your bookkeeper or your bank, payroll, we all have eyes on the business. Your business, if it's a small business owner, that's essential for everybody to have eyes on your business, so then you can grow your business the way you want to grow it, not be in the nitty-gritty of, say, payroll or what needs to happen with your taxes or your returns and so forth. But it really does create also stickiness. All of these institutions that were, banks and CPAs and so forth, we are all important. We are essential. We're needed to keep businesses going and in compliance. And for a great example is just what's happening today, what we're in the midst of today. You're the trusted advisor helping your clients, but it's good for you to have all these key components, and payroll being one of them, helping support the compliance of, let's say, the CARES Act and everything else that's happening with the coding that's necessary for payroll today.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Ben, anything to add?
No, I mean, I think they nailed that. They're all these services that CPAs, brokers, banks, payroll providers offer are all really interconnected and about managing your employees, the money, finances of small, medium, and larger businesses as well. So it's just all very interconnected, all essential things. So if you can be that one-stop shop trusted advisor, that only helps you be more attractive to other companies out there and your existing ones.
Yeah, you know what, Ben, I think that perfectly tees up our next question, right, around diversification. So, why should you, I kind of teased the question, devil's advocate, sometimes there's value in staying narrow and being focused, but why is it important, especially in these business models, to just diversify the services?
Mike, I think, and I mentioned that just previously, and Ben and Debbie also made some great points to this, and that is that product diversification is just really critical, and it's also one of the most prevalent reasons I hear that banks and CPAs and brokers get into the business. They are looking for a natural product extension that really ties into the services that they do today. And really payroll is so critical to that because of the data elements that you have in payroll. I mean, banks, accountants, brokers, everybody needs the data that you can get out of payroll. So to give you an example, and Debbie mentioned this earlier too, but I mean, also in our environment today, payroll is a very stable, predictable product. If you've got in most banks, the vast majority of the product offerings are interest income based, and payroll is a fee-based product. So that really provides that stability and normalcy, if you will, in a product that it's either paid on a per payroll basis, or per transaction basis, on a per employee per month basis. So it's a very compelling product offering to offer, as well as just being a very a wonderful extension of the normal portfolio. But and to Debbie's point about the last 3 months, in the COVID pandemic that we're currently in, the data generated from payroll has also been incredibly important in helping small businesses to apply for the PPP loans, to track all the other aspects of the CARES Act and the FFCRA. So that's really important. And looking at accountants specifically, I mentioned just briefly about the health of your business through the use of payroll through an outsourced provider. But that's so important to accountants, because the general ledger and their work with their clients is just hand in hand with payroll. So it really makes great sense for accountants to be participating and diversifying their portfolio into payroll. And then just briefly on brokers, ever since really the Affordable Care Act was passed 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think brokers realize the importance of the data that comes out of the payroll systems. And so again, the data being critical here to be able to be on top of early renewals, to be able to provide updates for their clients, and be able to provide the best service that they can. So I think we probably will address this last point I was going to make a little later as well. But I think it is important, and is that you should diversify your services because it provides you an opportunity to get your foot in the door for a new business. If particularly for accounting firms, it's difficult to get out and try to generate new clients. And if you had a payroll arm to do that, to go out and get new payroll business, as we said earlier, it's a huge market. There's a lot of opportunity there. You get somebody in on payroll, that's going to allow you then to upsell your other services. It's also going to allow you to sell to your existing customers payroll service. So I think the reasons to diversify are very compelling.
Yeah, it's interesting. You hit on it, and Debbie did earlier. It seems that if we're all trying to get our heads around what the impact of the pandemic was, right? To a large extent, we still are. I think most all of us. But if it's 3 months ago, 2 months ago, payroll is a little bit of a canary in the coal mine, right? If I'm a bank and I'm wondering the viability of my business, you can obviously you can tell cash balances in the ins and outs of money, but how much more insightful is it to actually know employee counts? Are they hiring? Are they retracting? How tight are they having to go, right? And that would be the same for any of the businesses. Hey, one more thing on diversifying. So I think we've kind of focused here on growth, right? How to add new sales, how to add new services, presumably, and we'll kind of talk about this, but additional revenue streams. What about as a defensive mechanism? There's a big transaction in the marketplace last week, excuse me, where a big player in this payroll space sold to the biggest payroll provider, who also goes after broker of record status with accounts. Kind of talk to about the defensive, almost I would say in some cases, need to diversify to protect against competitors from what would have been traditionally a different line of business now stealing your business. Yeah,
I can speak a little bit to that. So the way I look at it, I really, when you say defense mechanism, something that sticks out to me really is in the broker community, and really basically defending your book of business. And you have a book of business for your insurance clients, but your insurance clients are using payroll, and they're using it through a provider, most likely. Very few do it in-house, but it's there. But a lot, and most times they're using a provider. And again, we're talking about the flow of payroll. Well, insurance is a natural flow to payroll. That information is needed for deductions, and it flows into payroll. So that combination is ideal. But it opens up your market and your product portfolio to be able to provide your clients dual options. I can handle your insurance and I can handle your payroll, and they don't need to go anywhere else in risk of losing that clients to another broker, which is a payroll vendor. And many times with payroll vendors, that's their their biggest line of business. I mean, their portfolio is high when it comes to the insurance business. So we've talked about the flow. I believe that the product lines and what your offerings are, if it's more than just one item, it makes you more desirable, but then also it protects your book of business and your clients. I don't like to just, and they're not customers. I mean, I would hope that you would see adding all of these product lines, they become your clients, which is a much more endearing relationship with those business owners.
Yeah, for sure. And just the nature, maybe hard for a bank to become a CPA, a broker to become a bank.
Mm-hmm.
Even though all four groups are kind of interrelated, that there's just kind of the nature of payroll. It allows itself to be kind of white labeled and tucked into the other three businesses in a way that is not so in other cases. So
I'll add one more thing too, as we all work together, and then you would have much more control knowing where your client's at. So
yeah, very good. Okay, let's go to the next question. How does payroll deepen vertical integration? So this is interesting because this is something that's as a marketing guy, I think about how do you deepen relationships with customers, especially in a world where the delivery of those products are much more technological. In certainly, I think in all four of our worlds, geography, locality of service delivery. Can you shake a hand? Somebody eye to eye is important. But as the products become better and better, geography matters less, right? I'm holding a phone in my hand that from a company in Cupertino, California, that was made in China, and the thing just works. I don't need a local service provider to support my iPhone, because I turn the thing on and I kind of figure out how it works, and it always seems to work, right? So it is a payroll and HR products kind of move that direction. How does vertical integration play into a strategy for a bank, a broker, a CPA?
I'll take that one, Mike. The way I look at it is, if you want to be that local provider, great. I mean, it's all up to you. The growth factor of where you want to be and how far do you want to branch out? And do you want to get into multiple states, or do you just want to stay local? That's completely up to you. But the beauty of it is now with technology and software there, you're able to integrate together. You don't need to stay just in your community. You can always start in your community. That's really wise, supporting your community, getting out within your community, helping those local businesses, and you branch out from there. It's a great thought. And a lot of people start that way, but you can really branch out into different states. And another thing is that, vertical integration. And that's really, if you're an expert in a certain area, let's say you're really good with restaurants, you're a CPA, and you work on a lot of restaurants, business owners, you can become that subject expert in restaurant payroll. And what's beautiful is restaurants, they all talk, owners talk to each other. So looking for referrals to be able to take their business or to do their payroll, naturally you would be that trusted advisor for restaurant payroll. Same goes for medical practices, dental practices, say veterinarian and pet care. I mean, that can all be one. So you want to think kind of, how do I become this specialized expert either in a certain industry, or even look at it as with the software integrations that I'm able to have with my time and attendance and my HR services that I'm able to provide, and how far you want to take it. I will say it once again, expanding your product line is key, but then if you can really specialize in it, it'll make you much more powerful in the marketplace, and you can become that brand in the marketplace. I hope that answers some of it.
Yeah, no, I think that sure does. Ben or Kathy, anything else?
I think she did a great job.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all these different types of businesses have their own unique needs, whether it's reporting or how their payrolls are done, different types of codes and deductions and things that come with all the different types. So if you can really learn to specialize in that, work with software that's specifically geared towards those that can be integrated within your payroll, you can really become that subject matter expert and trusted advisor for other companies that are in that industry. And it just gives you a leg up over the generic and just opens up more opportunity. And you're going to get a lot more referrals from happy clients that you're already serving as that subject matter expert.
Yeah, and something that's passionate to me is I think technology will continue to flatten the world. And if you're a local business and your entire value proposition is based on we give the best customer service locally, then as the world gets flattened, it's not just so that you can have additional revenue streams that are quote unquote local. It's how you can be the best, financial services provider and human capital management services provider for the long-term healthcare industry, for the restaurant industry, for people in such and such niche, right? In getting deeper in those integrations. So, okay, let's move on to our next one. Question 4. So, this is really big, especially for some. What's the impact of a recurring revenue to my business? So, in some ways, there's a recurring component. There's I should say at least an ongoing revenue component. But what's the difference between, say, ongoing revenue and truly recurring revenue like you have in a payroll model?
Yeah, I'll start on that one. So again, payroll is essential and is going to be happening for any company that's open every month, weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever. So it is a very reliable revenue stream as long as you have that client on board. It's not going to fluctuate a ton. Obviously, there'll be some ebbs and flows with hirings and layoffs and stuff depending on the company, but it's really quite reliable on a month-to-month basis and allows you to do a lot more accurate planning and just knowing that you're going to have that predictable revenue coming in on a regular basis. It's not seasonal. There are seasonal components like W-2 season's always nice. You get a nice spike at the beginning of the year, but those payrolls are 24/7, 365 days a year. So that revenue is going to be there all year round. So it can really help offset some of those other maybe more chunkier transactional revenue items that you may get during like tax season or benefit enrollment season. So it just really helps with that ongoing cash flow planning, all the great things that come along with having a recurring revenue source that's there every month.
Very good. Kathy, anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, I just want to expand on something Ben just said, and that is true, that historically, the view of payroll is that it was very seasonal, that the first quarter was the biggest quarter because most people were deciding to change providers or to the bigger payrolls were in the first part of the quarter. But that really has flattened. Because of technology, Mike, as you had mentioned, and the fact that people can process their own payrolls and it's easy to convert over in mid-quarter. That seasonality that we used to have in the payroll business is really flattened. So you could start a payroll. A new payroll in the middle of July versus the first of the quarter or the middle of August. So I think that's a really important component of this too, because it is as we said earlier, a stable and predictable revenue model.
Yeah, and I'd also add that there is a lot of opportunity, especially with technology these days, to have a lot of kind of passive recurring revenue where you can have your clients set up pretty much for this to run like clockwork, and you're not confined with the amount of revenue you're bringing in by labor intensive hours and man hours on your side. Today you can offload a lot of that work actually to the client, and many of them want to have that control and enter in their own stuff. So it really allows you to have the option of not needing an all hands on deck approach to get this service done, which sometimes is needed in some of the more labor-intensive practices that our businesses are in.
And I mean, we'll talk about resiliency of a business model. It's just obvious, right? The world has moved to a subscription-based model, right? I mean, whether it's your Netflix account, your payroll service, or I mean, heck, you can buy your razors, the Shave Club of the month or whatever, get your razors mailed on a subscription basis. So there's an obvious attraction of the recurring revenue. There's also a real lumpiness of the expense, right? So if I'm an accountant and I got some serious, April 15th deadline hours every year, how do I defer my revenue when I have real life expense that I have to encounter? So as we've even seen changes in the payroll business moving from just price per check, there's a direction to its per employee per month, right? Where it's just a smoothing out of that revenue that there might be an opportunity for cost bundling, if you will, to amortize those costs out and be part of a, maybe it's a per employee per month, or heck, depending on how you do it, you could even do an all-in just per monthly fee, right?
Definitely.
So, okay, awesome. I'm sorry, Kathy, were you say something else on that?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, so that does jump to the next topic is resiliency. And boy, we saw it in this last 90 days, right? So how resilient is the payroll business, specifically in a downturn?
Yeah, this is really critical because, in the past we may have had recessions, but here we have both a recession and a pandemic that have hit at the same time. And it really, I think that because, and you mentioned it, Debbie mentioned it, the payroll is an essential business. It was deemed an essential business by the states and cities in all cases when the shutdown occurred. So it is an essential business, and it's because, there are just so many people out there that need to get paid in a regular basis. And so, there may be some decreases in clients or the number of employee counts in a period of time, but it doesn't go away, and it's kind of elastic in a way. It just kind of it moves, ebbs and flows with how the business is reacting. And so I would say that payroll overall is the constant. Even though when the COVID-19 first began, I think all businesses, and particularly even payroll providers, had a bit of a sucker punch, if you will, because this really took us all aback. But what happened really within about 30 days, we began to see businesses open up, beginning to work in a capacity. Obviously, the PPP loan helped a great deal with that. So, we began to see the economy begin to wake up a little bit during that time. But also what I found with payroll providers, and again, this is something for anybody looking to get into the payroll business, but, there's always going to be somebody thriving in a situation like this. And, we found that to be, delivery service companies, grocery stores, hardware stores, those other businesses were going through the roof in hiring new people, and being able to pivot and look at those businesses and bring those businesses on as new clients really just helps to equalize anything that you may have been suffering from the decrease in other traditional businesses such as restaurants and so on. So really, payroll it's resilient, it's elastic, and it is essential.
I would just to affirm basically, Kathy, what you said, there's always opportunity, right? For example, just what we saw with restaurants, and you've never thought that would ever happen, but then you could have an opportunity with delivery, transportation, other different types of industries, which all is, again, ties in, right? Because we talked about the integrations and the vertical and the specializing. So there's always an opportunity in payroll. Payroll doesn't go away, as you mentioned. So I just wanted to add that. I think that's really important, that there's always an opportunity to gain a client, and there's a lot of predictability and transparency within payroll and working with your clients, and you do have it.
So, but put you guys in the spot. Talk about maybe some external threats to all four of our business models. Whether you're a bank, a CPA, a broker, or a payroll company. I mean, what strikes me is just think back 2010. I think Affordable Care Act passes. I mean, that just completely rocked the benefits world, right? It just changed it overnight. I think about financial reform that happened. I think about major legislation that all of a sudden, if you're an accounting firm, just completely changes some of the services you have to provide. So to talk about how, legislative changes maybe a payroll business could insulate you from, because specifically in a pay-as-you-go subscription-based financial model.
Mike, those were all excellent examples of impacts to businesses, to one segment of the business that could help the other side of the business. And I do believe that the financial reforms, it did help or spark banks in particular to look at, okay, what are other non-interest income types of businesses that we can get into that's going to be more stable. So we did see a surge in that during that time frame, and I believe that that's just something that will continue. I do also, I believe, as it did in 2008 with the recession of 2008, businesses will change. And the way we do business will change. I think the major thing I got out of 2008 was that businesses laid out. It was an economic recession. So businesses either laid off workers or whatever, and the overall the workforce was reduced. They really never hired those people back. What happened is that technology really began to come to the forefront. Online payroll, other online accounting services really became more prevalent during that time frame, and people were learning, businesses, particularly small businesses, were learning to do more with less. I see where we are today, even though it's not a legislative in particular, Mike, I think we're going to see a huge change in the way people do business. I think you're going to see a lot more people working from home. I think you're going to see a lot more flexibility. Again, technology is going to be critical here. And I've always believed, and you said something very similar earlier on, Mike, technology is a great equalizer. To be able to have the same services that you can offer via technology to a worker who's working from home for a 10-man, 20-man company as it is with a 50, 500 or a 1,000-man company. That's important, I think, in being able to just not only to legislative changes, but to just the changes, global changes that occur because of certain dynamics, like what we're going through today.
Yeah, when we think about how, and we don't even have this as a question, but we could spend an entire webinar just on this topic. We think about major legislative changes, we think about recession changes, but how is AI going to impact all of our lives, right? AI, huge impact, and I think all four of our businesses. But how will those changes then impact your revenue stream, right? So probably topic for another webinar.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry about that. I was going to add, Mike, really quick with legislative changes. You're absolutely correct. There's always changes to payroll, that has to be done. So that change is necessary, and technology usually bridges that, which then you So, I remember ACA. When ACA hit, all of a sudden people didn't know what to do, where to go. They were asking their bank, their CPA, their broker, do you take care of this? Does it go through my payroll? Do you now handle my payroll? So all these questions arose. And next thing you know, if you were prepared and evolving and becoming, and innovative with what was happening in that situation, you were taking care of your client 100%.
Well,
Sorry.
but speaking of a work from world and a pandemic world, it's all good. Maybe the AI is what scared him. I think about legislation. So we're all exposed to it, right? I mean, so two of the biggest most sweeping HR legislation in the last decade happened, in the last 60 days with, FFCRA and in the CARES Act. And so I think, boy, we've been working our tails off in the payroll business, right? And anybody in the payroll industry, because there's major things we had to react to and change. But the beautiful thing is the revenue stream didn't change with it, right? So I think back to ACA, if I'm a benefit broker, if my entire value prop was my ability to create differentiated benefit plans that were uniquely structured to attract and retain talent, and all of a sudden just got blown up and those didn't even exist anymore. Oh my gosh, how am I going to make money, right? I mean, if I'm a bank or a CPA and I'm facing artificial intelligence that is just completely whacking the entire way that we even do business, how do I monetize, or how do I continue to monetize transactions that don't even happen anymore, right? So there seems to be something special about payroll, and maybe it's just that the business model has lent itself to a pay-as-you-go subscription basis, kind of a SaaS recurring revenue that I think has lent itself to this kind of resiliency. So, all right, anything other feedback on that, on question 5 before we move on?
No, I think you're right, though, Mike. We could talk about this topic for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, boy, it's a lot more than just simple recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to question number 6. What other new sales opportunities are created by adding payroll services? Kathy, I know this one's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, we've talked about this, I think, during the previous questions as well, but it is a natural product extension to be able to offer payroll. It's an excellent foot in the door for new business, as I had mentioned earlier, and it really allows you for more cross-sell opportunities. And in all of the cases that we've talked about, whether it's a broker or a bank or a CPA, it's difficult getting new clients. And your value proposition. Why would someone move over? And it is difficult. It's tough for you to go out and sell your services, and maybe someone doesn't need insurance services today, or maybe they don't need a new bank account today, but they all need payroll. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door, to create new business opportunities, because obviously with the new payroll business that you're bringing in, you can cross-sell your existing services. And for your existing clients that are on your traditional services, you could also upsell them with payroll. In a particular, we've got a client that is part of an insurance business, and they have 50,000 clients on the insurance side. And about 4 years ago, they started a payroll business. Now that payroll business has at least 5,000 clients and growing. So it really that's just a real life example of looking at the value of insurance as the base, and then adding payroll to that to provide additional services. And as we talked earlier about vertical, there's so much more that could be added to that. Whether it's workers' compensation or other areas that would fall under that same umbrella for payroll that maybe the firm is not offering today. So I just feel that with the data that's inherent and so valuable within payroll, it's just that equalizer, that core for any other business that evolves around payroll data, such as the banking community, accounting firms, and the insurance community.
Yeah, amen. Debbie, you had mentioned, we were talking before about something like just the different ebbs and flows and sequences. Obviously, if I'm a benefit broker, there's an annual enrollment. Right? If I'm a CPA, there, obviously I have, a focus on maybe quarterly in annual transactions. If I'm a bank, it's the timing of my ins and outs of cash. But what is it about the sequencing of payroll that creates new opportunities to sell new products?
Right. Well, I think we've mentioned it a few times already that payroll is 24/7. It's weekly. You're touching it all the time. So, for example, a CPA may handle quarterly returns, but when do they really sit down with their client or speak with their client? Now, the beauty of it is, yes, payroll can be as hands-off the way, if you want it hands-off, it can be that with your client. If you want to teach them and train them to go online. But they always come back to talking to, say, their payroll specialist or whoever is handling their payroll at that given time about other things that they're in need of. So I think that, for example, CPAs, if you had payroll in place, I mean, you're touching your client all the time, and it's all an auditing trail, as I mentioned before. So as they are going through and handling your books for the business and handling returns that need to be made for the business, project costs and so forth. Well, payroll is a great area to be able to do that as well, because now you're paying employees and you need to understand, okay, this is how much my payroll truly costs. And we've already talked about how predictable and transparent payroll is. That's pretty easy to do when you've got the reporting mechanisms in place from payroll to be able to do so. So it really all intertwines, as we had mentioned before. And I believe that if you already have a book of business or clients, to Kathy's point as a broker, and you add another layer to it, such as payroll, well, that just attracts possibly different types of clients or your current client base as well, because they're always going to, you hope that you build that relationship that's a client relationship. They're going to come to you and ask you, hey, you're handling my insurance. It's once a year enrollment, I understand. What about my payroll? Who do I go to for that? Well, what if it's all tied in? That's just, and it's part of your portfolio. So now your product portfolio is just not insurance and maybe workers' comp and individual insurance. Now you're branching out into payroll, HR services, and they all need each other. They all work and play nice in the sandbox. It's all needed.
Yeah, you know what? You hit on something really important, Debbie. I mean, who are the word trusted? The word trusted advisors gets thrown around a lot. In regardless of what type of vendor you are, everyone seeks that kind of status. But it's really three, right? It's your and maybe you can put a fourth in. So it's your bank, it's your benefit broker, it's your CPA, and then the fourth is probably an attorney. So we're not represented on this call necessarily, but you are the person that is most trusted by owners and CEOs and presidents in CFOs when it comes to these matters, right? So it's interesting. Not only is there an opportunity to sell these additional services, but if payroll isn't ongoing, it creates new touch points to sell more of what you already got, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to question number 7 here. So how do payroll services help firms build public awareness? I think this is an interesting kind of nuanced topic that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of, when considering making this kind of a change.
Yeah, I'll start on that one, Mike. So like we've discussed earlier, every company in your market, or really that needs payroll in general, can be a prospect. So you are likely going to be reaching out, speaking with all the businesses in your area. So it really helps get your name out there further. If anyone can be a prospect, then you're going to be having conversations with all these different types of businesses, and just more and more exposure of your company and then potentially your other services out there. And then, as we've also talked about, if you're gaining that reputation of becoming a trusted advisor or a specialist in certain areas, the word's going to get out amongst the communities that you're serving, and your brand awareness is just going to get expanded that much more. And again, you're going to have your finger on the pulse of the economies that you're in, because payroll is a good litmus test for how those businesses are doing. So it really expands your knowledge base, gives you more fingers on the pulse of what is going on with the economy and businesses in the areas you serve, and allows you to just really get out there and have the services you provide, your brand, your knowledge be put out in front of more and more companies. And that just spreads as you gain a good reputation.
Kathy, Debbie, anything you'd want to add there?
I think Ben said it perfectly.
Yeah,
You hit it.
something jumps to mind for me. There's the, in some ways, I think we think about banking, we think about CPA, we think about the senior level consultation of a benefits broker, and also lawyers. These true advisory kinds of services. There's prestige that goes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a harsh reality. There's 42,000 accounting firms in the United States. There's 5,000 FDIC insured banks, and how I don't know how many thousands more credit unions in the United States, right? So there are not thousands of payroll providers. So if you're one of 50 accounting firms in your city, there might be 3 or 10, including some small regionals, payroll providers. You just simply are part of a smaller number. Kathy, can you kind of talk about maybe what that looks like for, if you are one of the small list of payroll providers in your area, and how that kind of gives you the opportunity to elevate your name in the public?
Well, absolutely. It's not a matter of size necessarily, but it's a matter of reputation. It's a matter of service. And I mean, we've worked with businesses, across the country, and we work with a lot of small independent payroll providers. And it's interesting that you don't have to be the biggest. You don't have to have a national footprint necessarily. You have to be a valued resource in your community, a trusted resource in your community. And with that then comes growth. I mean, I've seen so many people that just based on, being involved in the community, paying taxes in that community, hiring people from that community, serving the businesses of that community, all of that is very, very valuable. And again, it's just a force multiplier. I mean, the more you do that, and the more you're out there and involved in the community, the more it helps your branding, the more it helps your business. So, it's a very unusual type of situation, I think. And it goes back to what we've talked about today, is because payroll is so critical. It's such a critical part of the small business community, and what you can do to really put your brand on that and your mark on that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, there's also something else about the payroll business. It's generally the owner or whoever runs the financial function who knows their accounting firm. The general public, their employees, might not have any idea who their broker of record is, who their CPA is. They probably, but not necessarily, even know who their bank is. But they're going to probably know who's their payroll provider, right? They might see it right on the check, right? And so there's just that's kind of free marketing, right? It's just simply a way to get your name in front of all, not just your points of contact at your client, but every one of their employees who knows what businesses they're going to start someday. So, okay, awesome. Let's talk about question number 8. How difficult is it to retain payroll customers? I think this is something that, kind of scares the heck out of people, right? I mean, if I know banking, I know what to do. I know how to make people happy in banking. I know how to, I know accounting like nobody. I can create amazing benefit plans to help my customers as a broker. this is uncharted waters for folks. What if everything we've talked about up to this point sounds great, but am I going to put my entire book at risk by doing this? Talk about payroll customer retention and what that looks like.
Okay, I'll start with that one, Mike. Retention with payroll, we're talking small business. So to Kathy's point, a lot of who we've worked with are, either privately held or a smaller independent type of a reseller or bureau payroll service. And so, for them, if you're, a lot of people say, oh, well, there's the big gorillas out there, the big ones that just will go after clients. But there's a huge separator there. There's a big one. And the one is the big separator that I see is that there's only you and you're on the smaller end. So you're able to deliver on the service that most everybody wants. Everybody wants an intimate type of a customer service team to provide them excellent service always. And then resolution time. Resolution time's a big one as well. Nobody wants to be a number. Nobody wants case numbers assigned to them. They want to be known that I'm going to speak to someone. And fine, if you have to assign me a number, great. Okay, I'm not going to worry about the number. But they want to know that the resolution time is going to be a lot shorter than, say, the big gorillas in the house. So with retention, I think that there's quite a few things that you can do to set yourself and elevate your business to be that model where clients stay with you. And retention, in my mind, is stickiness. And stickiness, you create that by, we've already mentioned it, having a portfolio that is diverse in business solutions to help that business out in growth or wherever they may want to go. Everybody has their dreams. Some want to go big, some want to just kind of want to stay in a certain, and we're going to talk more about that, your vision of your business. But the business owners that you're helping, they have their vision and they want to know that you're in tune with their vision. And so you being able to be in tune with their vision and provide them business solutions because you're their trusted advisor and you're able to handle it all in one place, one-stop shop, so to speak, it creates stickiness and retention. It makes it harder for them to want to leave you. And many times they might leave and they come right back because they're not going to get the service that they were getting from your CPA/payroll firm or your insurance payroll company, that speaks volumes. I think that the other thing is that you already have business clients or you have a sphere of influence. I look at it as sphere of influence or your army. It's either you have clients or you have people that trust you already and would become your clients. Payroll is a wonderful entry point for that. And then you add on to, if you're not already a CPA and a broker, with software solutions to just expand your portfolio base. But I really believe for you to have a high retention rate, it's creating stickiness with the solutions that you're providing your clients. And if anybody wants to add anything, the only other thing is really being that trusted advisor. I think we have hit that home time and time again already, is having them become your client, not just a customer, or they come to you. And that's a natural flow. I know banks get it all the time too. Where do I go for this? Because they're a financial institute. It's a natural place to go ask where I would get certain services, as to ask a CPA, as to ask a broker, to ask a payroll service. But if you have it all there, then you become that trusted advisor for all their business functionality. And it creates
Debbie. So I'm not gonna praise nor disparage any vendor. But I am gonna use two examples because they're publicly traded, and you can just look at their 10Ks and you can find the numbers yourself. When you think about retaining a payroll customer, the two biggest national players who compete in many ways with banks, accountants, and brokers, and their payroll business. So ADP has a customer retention rate of somewhere around 92, 93%. They focus a lot on bigger customers, or it's really hard to it's much more painful to make a switch. But Paycheck, who's solely small business focused, I mean, they're in the 85, 87% retention range. I think the point is not those are good or bad numbers, good or bad companies. You will find those types of retention numbers across the entire payroll industry. And so what that means, if you've got an 85% retention rate, that means the average customer stays with you 8.5 years. Somebody's paycheck is going to be wrong in 8.5 years. Something bad is going to happen in 8.5 years, no matter how good or how bad you are, right? Just like there's nobody, no broker, no CPA, no bank who's never made a mistake with a customer in 8.5 years, right? The point is, and I think you hit it, Debbie, that creates opportunities to serve and deepen relationships. But the data also says that customers, once they choose a vendor, they don't want to leave. I mean, who wants to switch payroll vendors? That is not fun, right? So as scary as it may be, the reality is once you get a payroll customer, as long as you're doing a good job, I mean, you can't do a bad job, but as long as you're doing a good job, these customers will stay with you for a very long time to grow that revenue stream, but also to cross-sell your existing and other products. Kathy, anything else you want to add on that?
That was going to be my point. So thank you, Mike. That's a good one.
Okay. I stole your thunder. I apologize.
Yeah, there's a lot of ancillary businesses that go along with payroll, including the ones that you guys are all in already, but there's also time and attendance, workers' comp, all sorts of additional add-ons that you can increase that stickiness and retention once you've got them on the payroll and the other services, and just really allows you to keep diversifying that portfolio and serving all their needs.
Yeah. Hey, Kathy, I want you to start with this one if you could. So I think about, barriers to entry to a business. If I want to enter the oil refinery business, I've got, hundreds of millions of dollars in capital investment that must be made to build a refinery before I generate a single penny of revenue, right, from the process of that. So really, really high barrier to entry. If I'm a wedding photographer, it used to be that I had to have $10,000 worth of equipment and go to school. And now what gets produced on an iPhone or a $600 camera from Best Buy is amazing. The barriers to entry are crushingly low to people who are professionals in that industry. What are the barriers to entry for the payroll business? And think about expertise and capital.
Relatively low in the payroll business. I mean, I think the most critical area is competence, and I would strongly advise that if and when you get into the payroll business, your first hire is someone with strong operational background. You need somebody to run the business. You need someone who's been a part of a service bureau environment and knows how things should run. Because I think that's the most critical. So you do need to have the right people in. And I would strongly encourage, versus having someone within your current organization has not had payroll service bureau experience run it. I would hire someone with that experience. And that's the most critical. You need to understand payroll because, as we said at the very beginning, payroll is complex. You need to understand the wage and labor laws. You need to understand tax compliance, and you need someone or people who understand that. So your initial investments will be in people. You'll also need to invest in software. There are a number of software companies that are out there that would provide a basis there, and they're not that expensive initially to get up and running. So you've got your software expenses, you've got your the competence in bringing in strong people to help run the business. And there's an example. There was a CPA that I'm familiar with that decided to expand into payroll, had been referring his payroll business for years and years, and the first person he hired was someone who has 30 years experience in payroll, and that's by far the best thing to do. And because a trusted advisor already has a business, an established business, more than likely you're not going to have to incur any additional rent expense for this, and at least initially. You're not going to have to incur a lot of the technology expenses, because you probably have a lot of that already in the organization, but mainly in the people and in the processes. And one area that you'll still have to invest in is the printing capability. As long as I've been in the industry, and you just think it's just second nature that people should always get their paychecks through direct deposit, it's still about 50% of employees that do not. They want a physical check, so you will have to make that investment. That's relatively low because you could rent that equipment as well, and the paper and the thing that's involved. So it's a relatively low capital barrier for entry, but certainly pretty high. And on competency, and one thing I will just say on the capital side, you will need to think about the fact that you're going to run your business for about six months or so at a deficit. If you put your business plan together, you're not. It's going to take a while to bring in clients, and your first target will be your own clients that you can cross-sell your services. That happens, then you'll be able to really run with it. And then I would highly recommend hiring a salesperson, a competent salesperson, as you start to grow, so that you can definitely look at bringing in that new business that we were talking about earlier. Ben, I know you had some feedback on this as well.
I mean, Kathy, I think you touched on most of it. It's not a really capital intensive business to get into as far as startup costs go compared to others. It's really just having that expertise, and then getting some of those key things in place, like good operational experience, good salesperson, and having the right technology to work with.
Yeah, very good. So I think one of the, there's a reason why there's a small number of payroll providers in any given market, right? And the good news for the people on this call is that it's not because capital requirements are so high it takes millions and millions of dollars to start a payroll company. It's competency. Mm-hmm. And if you're already in the space, you're a broker advising people how to construct benefit plans at the optimal costs that attract and retain talent, or if you're a CPA providing bookkeeping and tax services, you're a bank providing banking services. I mean, you're already kind of halfway there, at least from a competency in participating in tangential parts of this world today. So very good. Okay, let's go to our last question. How does adding payroll services impact a company's valuation? And Kathy, I know this is a topic near to your heart. Let's get specific and talk about banks, CPAs, brokers, because an awful lot of this, these are mature industries. Payroll is a mature business model as well. This is kind of a baked area. We know how companies of different types and different revenue streams get valued.
Well, I think that the key thing here is, what is your business plan? What are you trying to accomplish here? Do you want to grow your business? Do you want to grow X amount? And I think that your strategy out of the gate is really most important, because this is a service that you currently want to add to an existing business. And do you want this to, in the long run, you want to sell your accounting firm, and you want to be able to, in the next 10 to 20 years, get the best valuation you can out of that? Well, the payroll will be a very key component to that. I mean, it helps exponentially to expand, the valuation that you would receive from your payroll business. From your accounting business. You could also look to sell the payroll business by itself down the road. So again, I think it's important that you make those investments and determine from the very, very outset, is this a business you want to grow? And some people don't. Some people want to add payroll services to their portfolio, and it's really nothing more than just to accommodate, a handful of your clients that you have, or you never want to grow more than 50, 60 clients, and that's really all you want to do. That is absolutely fine. But if your position here, your strategy is, I want to grow this business, I want to grow it 20% a year, then you're going to have to make the investments in the business. You're going to have to make the investments in the right people. You're going to have to make investments in sales. I would strongly encourage making investments into marketing so that you can broaden your reach. We said earlier, you can become, you can broaden more regionally with payroll. You don't necessarily have to have, an office where you're servicing your payroll clients. You then can become a regional payroll play. While you may be a community bank, you become a regional payroll provider. That can happen, but it all depends on the strategy and the things that really impact your, I would say your valuation. Obviously, the first thing is your top line growth. Every business that's looking at, and I'll just focus now on payroll strictly, but if you're looking to sell the payroll component of your business 20 years down the road, the valuation is going to be a multiple revenue. So you've got to grow your revenue. And again, if you're growing at 20% over the next 10 years, next 5 years, that's going to certainly help. Your profitability. So you're going to need to be able to price this competitively, but you're also going to need to run your business very profitably. So profitability is key. Pricing is key. If you're too low, if you're trying to be the low-cost provider in your market and you've grown your business a lot, that's going to make sure that your profitability will be lower. So that's going to factor into the valuation. Your market share. How have you grown your business and what is your footprint in your particular market? Your client mix. I think this is critical too, because a lot of times you will find companies that maybe their revenue, 20% or more of their revenue may be made up of, 2 to 3 customers. And I know from a valuation standpoint, if you've got more than 5% of your business in a particular client, that client can be lost, it certainly is going to impact your valuation. And then just finally, I think an area, again, I talked earlier about the competency of a good operations person. It's very important that you get a good tax person. That you have someone who understands the tax. You have the separations of duties between operations and tax. But I point that out because one of the areas that can really impact negatively your valuation is how you have managed your tax funds, how that money has been managed over time. And again, it's very different. It's a different business model than you in your current businesses today manage. So being able to have a competent tax advisor or professional on staff who can make sure that you're dealing with that. And those are really the key components that I see in valuation for a payroll company.
That's awesome, Kathy. I think maybe one more layer I think about, and I'm thinking back to like question number 3 when we're talking about vertical integration. When you license someone else's software, so if you're a fee-based, like I said, banks, brokers, CPAs, those valuation models are fairly well baked, and just most consultancies are going to be a 1 to 2 times, maybe 1 to 1.5 times revenue, kind of a multiplier, sometimes less, sometimes more. And I think everything you just said, profitability, growth, defensibility of model, not too much client concentration, all are going to impact whether you're at the top or the bottom of that range. But there's a whole nother world of software, right? Software companies don't get valued on EBITDA numbers. They usually get valued on top line revenue multiples and how fast they're growing while losing money. It's kind of a crazy business model in many cases. And so when you're licensing software, you don't own that tech. But when you get to vertical integration, Debbie, can you kind of speak to this where you might not own the payroll tech, but you sure as heck could own the middleware tech that maybe stitches payroll together with a benefits platform, with an ERP platform for some specific vertical market?
Okay, Mike, restate that. I'm so sorry. Kind of went out on me for a minute.
Yeah, I'm just. You were commenting earlier in question 3 about vertical integration, and anybody can jump in on this. I think about not necessarily owning the technology for a payroll provider, but as you go deeper down a vertical and you have some technology that you do develop around integrations to platforms within a vertical, how that creates a stickier play and then you start getting a little bit more technology type valuation multipliers, not just traditional valuation models.
Right. Well, I mean, absolutely. As your vertical, as a company, I mean, you grow and you're adding those solutions, technology to your current payroll platform absolutely creates stickiness. And then, I mean, if you're adding or growing that type of software yourself, as it's proprietary, and you can grow from that, I mean, that does definitely create stickiness. I think, to Kathy's point, it just all depends on where you want to go. I mean, there's some payroll services that want to be relatively small, and they're dealing with maybe a client size of 13 employees or less. They may not need all of that, but they find it to be a very strong company for them. So the beauty of this business is you can really be small, or you can take it to grow to where you want to grow it to, and add components and solutions and software to what you have. And your company and your business model may pivot. I mean, you might notice you're adding a certain type of clientele, and you want to pivot more towards that because you find that the revenue stream is greater. So the vertical integration is so important because you can really look at where your business is going and where your strengths are and follow that along. But to Kathy's point, I think that for the valuation part of it, it definitely is, market share, your client mix, and absolutely a salesperson. And some people get into the business. You might be already a CPA or broker, but you know your strength. You're either strong in operations or you're strong in sales. Or you may just be strong in, factor finding of Excel spreadsheets. Who knows? But you know what your strength is. Now you need to find that person that's really going to kind of elevate that game for you. And you can then, bring new clients in and retain those clients, because that's the key. You want to retain them, but then you also want to be attractive to go ahead and bring new clients in. So I think Kathy laid it out nicely, but yes, the vertical integration is key for growth.
Awesome.
For growth.
All right, guys. This has been a fantastic conversation. I look forward to continuing this in our next in our webinar series. Before we wrap, the purpose of today is to really take a thoughtful look at why we believe banks, CPAs, benefit brokers really should take a hard look at the payroll business. How it can improve their values, how it can improve their revenues, how it can improve their growth and retention of their own customers outside of just the payroll business. But we see all three of these constituencies as the real trusted advisors for our customers and our target customers. And as a national payroll provider that behaves an awful lot like a small business, we want local relationships with our clients, and we are happy for those local relationships to be with you guys. And so that's why we deliberately come out to market with a white label strategy where we have the exact same products, the payroll and tax, time and attendance, HR services products, specifically designed for partners that are white labeled, where you can put your name on that software, your name on the collateral, and develop these businesses where you get to be the star, not us. We view you as the trusted advisor. You have the relationships. You have the opportunity to grow. And if we can make you happy and help you grow your business by helping them grow their businesses, then we all win. So with that, if you're interested in learning more, by all means, reach out and contact us. We will be sending a recorded version of this webinar. And the next in our series will be the top 10 questions answered about the considerations you need to make if you choose to enter the payroll business. So today is all about why you should consider it. But once you've made that decision, there are a bunch of other big decisions you're going to have to make and things you need to consider. And that's exactly what we'll talk about next webinar. So with that, very much appreciate everybody's time. Thank you and have a great day.